Well, hello there, everyone. Here we right here talk about right here. I'll talk about for New Year's right here. I'm sure most of us have wanted to do something special for around New Year's time, and especially when it comes to being together. And of course, if you're going to maybe be in a lot of those crowds, and also celebrating with a lot of your friends and family and all that. But I have right here a sketch right here talk about for New Year's right here. What does it usually mean whenever you do meet somebody, especially on New Year's Eve, and let's just say that if somebody that you have just met for the first time, maybe if you met them before or something like that, so a lot of things about the stories that you just really cannot explain and all that, but still that. Yeah, this sketch right here that I worked on from about 3 years ago. It was about 3 or 4 years ago, something like that. And so it was like, yeah, you're doing a sketch and, of course, doing some Photoshop work right here. But you have right here these moments right here, and I know a lot of times it's like, whenever I was looking at this, I was just thinking too that go ahead and think about this is like to where if this was like on a greeting card, and with this greeting card that you know how that is to where that especially if it's for Valentine's Day or just somebody in particular, and I just sketched this and just you can see right here. I'm like, you got the lady right here, the madam, and then along with the sir right here. I'm along with the guy, and talk about for New Year's right here. So it seems like to me though that most of the time between holding hands and maybe hugging each other or maybe looking each other straight in the eye, and a lot of times it sure seems that way. It's going to remind us a lot of those moments to where that yeah, what exactly do we necessarily think about whenever those moments come up? And so it sure seems that way that you go ahead and draw a number of these designs, and it's like people may think is toward that well, really, what is that supposed to represent for love, and of course with New Year's Eve? And so I was working on a sketch for around New Year's Eve during the holidays, and I was just thinking too is to where that what does that usually mean whenever two couples whenever they connect, and they'll likely say too that what does it usually mean whenever you do stare each other straight in the eye and just like have these moments to where that if you want to kind of call it like to where you want to observe each other or just look at each other, and and just not say anything for those first few seconds or something like that, so before you start talking. And so it sure seems that way to where if it's really friendships or relationships or anything like that, but I really was one to use this right here is like for a message for the future right here of talking about is that we all know that nowadays with this virtual learning stuff that it's like with the virtual connection that it's like well you're looking at each other through the phone, no, of course, is not the same as compared to actually seeing this person in person, or like between seeing each other in person. So you probably know what I'm talking about. Whenever you actually see somebody in person, it sure seems that way toward that you want to do a lot, from beyond the imaginable, such as to where if you want to go ahead and maybe you'll pat them on the shoulder or maybe hug them, and for any reason at all that you just don't think don't see no reason maybe why you were hugging this person, or maybe if you wind up kissing them on the cheek or maybe patting them on the shoulder or something like that. So it sure seems that way. Like even if it is or morning breakfast or if it's dinner or something like that, that any source of occasion, that it sure seems that way to where it don't really give this each person enough time to really explain about the story about really can you really explain to this person by hugging them about what's been going on from over the months or the years and all. So a lot of times it sure seems that way that whenever I look at this I was like, well, really, that I was also thinking too that if I can maybe use one of these designs as like maybe for children's Tylenol, like to help patients feel more comfortable, maybe if they're in the doctor's office or in the dentist office, something like that. So at the time, really, what does that have anything to do with love? But still, if you're going to be in the doctor's office, the nurse's office, but still, that whenever it comes to designs like these, though, it sure seems that way that Yeah, that whenever you do meet somebody in person, a lot of times it seems like you don't really see too much of a high five, and a lot of times it's like how many times do we necessarily see very many sketches or maybe art designs of people giving each other a high five. A lot of times it's like it's like chin to chin, or if it's nose to nose or something like that. And so, like I say, is to where, yeah, talk about for message for the future is something I was thinking about calling us also. But it seems like to me, though, that whenever I was working on this, I mainly want to make this look like, for New Year's Eve, and that you're staying up past midnight. And it sure seems that way to where, that, yeah, if you're going to be maybe going to a party or something like that, maybe around the summertime, or maybe right around the holidays. It sure seems that way. That do you really have to explain to somebody about what you've been doing, from over the weeks or the months or something like that? And so it sure seems that way. I'm like, yeah, a sketch like this, and you go ahead and do the sketch like this, and with do some Photoshop work right here, and just thinking as to where that, what do you necessarily think about whenever you think about moments like these? I'm like, you got right there is chin to chin and nose to nose right here, but really is that what sorts of a language or what sorts of signs are you really giving the other person? But at the time it's like, well, really, whenever you actually see each other in person, it sure seems that way to where that's whenever the connection site. And I know, like most of those logos will probably say too that if you look at the sketch real closely, though, if that's right there, if that right there is supposed to represent any source of mob, like yeah, two puppets or something like that. Two puppets that are trying to talk to each other, and anything that you might think that they'll be doing, but still that I know that, especially for New Year's, though, on New Year's Eve, that when we think about couples, the way they connect, though, that you got the ladies' arm and hand on the left shoulder, I say on the right shoulder, I guess that'll be the right shoulder, and then the gentleman's hand, on the left hip, I say not the hip, but it'll be like right there, on their back, but. Anyway, so yeah, you come up to these moments to where that whenever you're actually together, with family and friends and all that, and so it sure seems that way to where that whenever you think about that, though, it's like really but what moment do you think that you enjoy the most about that? But I'm just mentioning about as to where that a couple of times, like for almost every New Year's, it sure seems that way. That whenever I sketch a design or something like that, it sure seems that way to where that yeah, that you want to think about a moment of time to where whenever you do talk to somebody in person, or whenever you actually meet somebody, it sure seems that way. That don't really give you a whole lot of time really to explain about what's been going on from over the years and what you've been working for, that's such and such. So it sure seems that way to where that you want to ask the question to where how often do you really have time to shake the person's hand and maybe to give each other a hug or something like that. Even if you do meet in the library, or if it's in the doctor's office, that it seems like that they don't really give you a whole lot of time really to explain about what's been going on. So it sure seems that way to where, yeah, anybody may say that, is it particularly normal for somebody to be twinkling with you by your ears or your cheek or anything like that? But still, you have right here that this painting I worked on here, that what I found in my portfolio actually, and I was just thinking that it was a sketch, and then I had to do some more Photoshop work with it, just to be able to bring a little bit more of the face right here, the lips, and then along with the eyes. But still, that it was like most of the time with most couples, though, it's like whenever you do meet, or maybe if it's the first or the second time or something like that, what exactly that does come to your mind? And people may think that, well, really, that I guess the key factor matter is knowing as to where, like, on New Year's Eve, or if it's right around midnight. So, at the time, you probably want to know too, is that what's so special about about midnight, about the time 12 o'clock midnight. And people are thinking too that, oh, okay, well, that's usually around the time that the start of the new morning a lot of times. Or, I'm like, yeah, getting up between certain time of the morning others just to be able to watch the sunrise and all that. But anyway, so yeah, a lot of things that may come to my mind, but I'm using this right here as example of something about, talk about for the future, the future, midnight, and but it sure seems that way toward it, people that you do meet, and nowadays with this virtual connection and everything, and people may learn to where what do you think that you're going to do if you do wind up meeting this person in person? Let's just say if it's a famous, ball player, if it is a famous champion or somebody like that. Like I think you think you're going to be able to get them a hug or, give them a hand, shake their hand or anything like that. But at the time, people may want to where that really, though, that, does it really necessarily have to be about love, or could it really just be about, is to where that whenever you do, meet somebody in person, that what exactly are you necessarily doing between virtual connection and actually an in-person connection? And people may say is to where that whenever you actually talk to this person and actually see what they look like and how tall they are, whichever it could be in person. And at the time, it seems like I'm coming at, so just now it's time to get this party started. But yeah, still, so a lot of times it sure seems that way. That whenever we think about that, though, whenever you actually see the real event, whenever you actually are able to meet this person, though, like at the time, it seems like that the reality picture, and I guess if you want to kind of call it just a little bit of the reality picture, to where whenever you're able to see this person in reality, and it sure seems that way to where that really it just seems so real to be true, but still, but it comes to those moments to where that do you really want to explain all the complications that we all went through so far as from where we are now, from where we were about a year ago? So a lot of times it's like people may say too that, do you think that maybe that can be explained on a logo or any source of painting, to where exactly what does this mean right here? I'm like anybody in particular. But the reason why I drew this, of course, was talk about for New Year's Eve. So the first thing that I know what I was thinking about was graduation. And almost everybody else might say too that whenever you're thinking about romance, a lot of times you might think as to where, okay, well, going out to dinner, or if anything, yeah, buying a new car, opening up a business or something like that. But let's just say that number one, that if this person met, seen your work and then noticed your work, and let's just say that the relationship kind of started is to where, let's just say if it started at the doctor's office, in case of anybody that may want to where that you wind up falling in love with this person at the doctor's office or something like that. So it's like, yeah, I guess we all gotta stay healthy, say it. We all gotta stay healthy no matter what, right? And then half the time it sure seems that way whenever you come up to these embarrassing moments, though, and you're probably thinking that yeah, well, whenever you want to meet somebody, you want to have the nicest hairdo, or you want to, make sure that your clothes are not all wet or whichever you call it. But at the time, it sure seems that way that whenever you come up to these moments to where whenever you do meet somebody, and you're probably thinking as to where those moments to where that you are able to realize, this person, that yeah, the things that you've been waiting to hear and waiting to talk about and waiting to think about, what you want to do next, But the way I think about it too, though, that whenever I think about drawings like these, though, it's like, yeah, I look at my future as knowing is toward that, somebody that I do wind up meeting one of these days, and they're going to be asking me about that, is toward, yeah, that whenever you draw a picture, you try to make it as artistic as you can, didn't you? but it sure seems that way to where that I don't know, 12 months later, and half the time you want to know too about where you think that the party's gonna be, or what will be going on. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and talk about safe for talk about featured and talk about for love and talk about for romance.